Rain clung to the car windows in jagged streaks, the storm outside refusing to let go of us. I sat rigid in the leather back seat of a black Bentley, its heated cushions wrapping me in a false sense of comfort, while my daughter, Lily, curled against my side, still trembling from smoke and exhaustion. The fire that devoured our building less than 12 hours ago still burned behind my eyes. I could smell it clinging to my hair, to her little jacket. We had escaped with nothing, no bags, no photos, no past, just ash. And now we were riding in silence with a stranger who knew far too much. "My name's Arthur Black," the man said finally, his voice calm, steady, surgical. He didn't look at me when he spoke, just stared ahead at the glowing, rain-slicked road that led north. "Westchester. You're safe now." Safe. The word sat wrong in my chest. How did this old man, sharp suit, silver hair combed immaculately back, know my name? How did he know Lily's? And how did he know that the fire had left us with nowhere to go? He spoke like someone who had been waiting for us, like this wasn't rescue at all, but a plan unfolding. The Bentley slowed as massive wrought iron gates swung open, creaking under the storm's weight. Stone lions guarded the drive, eyes carved cold and merciless, as if daring me to turn back. But there was nowhere left to go. The city was behind us, the storm around us, and Arthur Black's world directly ahead. The driveway curved toward a mansion so large it looked like it had swallowed generations whole. Power generators hummed like secret engines, keeping the estate untouched while the rest of the neighborhood fought blackouts. Everything here whispered money, quiet, oppressive, suffocating money. Inside, the silence felt heavier than the storm. Security alarms blinked red against the walls like tiny eyes watching every move. Oil paintings glared down from their frames, ancestors frozen in judgment. Arthur walked with purpose, leading us deeper, his steps echoing against polished marble. Lily clung to my coat, her small fingers sticky with soot and fear. When we reached the guest house, my breath caught. It was bigger than every apartment I'd ever rented combined, bigger than any home Lily had ever known. Chandeliers glittered, velvet drapes cocooned us from the storm, and the air smelled like cedar and secrets. "Hot cocoa," Arthur said, nodding to the maid who appeared wordlessly from the shadows. Within minutes, Lily sat at a table clutching a steaming mug, wide eyes darting from crystal vases to the gold-trimmed fireplace. She looked like she had stumbled into a fairy tale, but my stomach twisted. Fairy tales always came with a curse. Arthur slid a folder across the table to me. Inside documents. Legal language. A contract for temporary stay, thick with clauses, stamped with a crimson seal. A non-disclosure agreement sat on top like a warning. I stared at the pages, my throat tight. "Why me?" I asked. My voice was smaller than I wanted it to be. "Why her?" Arthur didn't answer. Instead, he gestured for me to follow him. His steps led us into a vast library lined with glass cases, each filled with artifacts of a family's life. First edition books, framed awards, and endless photographs of smiling faces. His family. At least the family he wanted the world to see. He paused at the fireplace, his hand brushing dust from a mantel crowded with silver frames. There, smiling in still-life perfection, was a young woman with Arthur's same sharp eyes. His daughter, I guessed. Next to her, a baby swaddled in a knitted pink cap, small fingers curled, a faint strawberry birthmark glowing against her wrist. The air left my lungs. My knees weakened. I couldn't stop myself from stepping closer, because that birthmark, it was identical to Lily's. My daughter had been born with the same mark. A tiny splash of red that doctors called harmless, but I always thought of as fate's signature. I spun toward Arthur, my voice a whisper shredded by fear. "Where did you get that picture?" Arthur's throat bobbed as he swallowed. His composure, so precise until now, cracked for just a second. His eyes softened, and for the first time I saw not wealth or control, but grief. "That's my granddaughter," he said quietly. "She disappeared 9 years ago." The room tilted. The storm outside roared louder. My ears rang with a truth I didn't want to hear. Lily was still sipping cocoa behind us, oblivious, her lips leaving faint chocolate stains on the rim. I reached for the photo with trembling fingers, but Arthur grabbed it first. Flipping the frame over as though unveiling the final piece of a puzzle he had waited nearly a decade to solve. On the back, in neat, careful cursive, were words that turned my blood to ice. Emily's girl. Peanut. Before I could speak, Lily looked up. her small voice carrying into the silence like a ghost walking through the room. "That's what the man at the shelter used to call me," she said, and the mug slipped from her hands. Cocoa spilling across the table like blood spreading in water. Morning arrived like a lie dressed in silk. The storm had passed, but the air outside Arthur Black's mansion carried the thick, artificial smell of manicured hedges and wet asphalt. Sunlight cut across the cul-de-sac in sharp lines, highlighting identical mailboxes and American flags that waved too proudly, as if the neighborhood itself were trying too hard to look normal. Inside, everything smelled of cedar polish and wealth, but beneath it, I swore I could taste smoke still clinging to my lungs. Arthur insisted on showing me around his estate. He moved like a man carrying invisible chains, calm but heavy, precise but strained. When we reached the end of a long hallway, he stopped before a reinforced steel door. He tapped a code into a panel, and bolts slid back with a noise that made my skin crawl. The safe room yawned open, colder than the rest of the house. The walls were lined with monitors, filing cabinets, and steel shelves filled with boxes stamped legal records and evidence. My eyes froze on the corkboard pinned against the far wall. It looked like something ripped from a crime show, clippings, photographs, and sticky notes tied together with red string. House fires, court documents, eviction notices, handwritten words, custody battle, inheritance dispute, CPS referral. In the very center, like a bullseye, was my driver's license photo. Red string wrapped around it again and again, like a noose tightening around my throat. I staggered back, the taste of bile rising. "What is this?" My voice shook despite how hard I tried to steady it. Arthur's eyes didn't leave the board. "Patterns," he said. His tone was sharp, cutting, like he'd been waiting years to say this aloud. "Someone cleans families off the map before they can complicate money. Lawsuits, estates, wills. It looks like tragedy, but it's bookkeeping. You were next." Before I could breathe, he clicked a remote. One of the monitors lit up, grainy dashcam footage rolling in black and white. My building, still standing 2 nights ago, windows glowing faintly. A figure crept into frame carrying a gas can. The screen zoomed closer. The face blurred into static, but the jacket was clear, dark, with an embroidered logo stitched on the chest. Ridge Lane HOA, maintenance. A chill crawled through me. That was my neighborhood's homeowner association. The same people who fined me for leaving a stroller outside my unit, who slipped letters under my door when Lily's toys cluttered the yard. And now, evidence that one of them might have set my building ablaze. Before I could question further, the doorbell rang. The chime echoed like a gunshot through the mansion's silence. Arthur's jaw locked as he marched to the foyer. I followed, pulse racing, clutching Lily's hand so tightly her fingers went red. The man waiting outside was silver-haired, dressed in a custom suit that probably cost more than my annual rent. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It cut instead, sharp and shark-like. He extended a hand with the confidence of someone who never heard no. "Gavin O'Connell," he said smoothly. "Family law, Arthur's son-in-law." His grip lingered, squeezing as if measuring how easily I could break. Arthur's voice dropped, tight and bitter. "Ex-son-in-law!" The tension between them was electric, sparking in the air like live wires. Gavin turned back to me, smile never faltering. "If you need anything, Mia, we're right around the corner. This neighborhood takes care of its own." He pressed a glossy business card into my palm before walking away, his shoes crunching against the gravel like a warning. When I turned the card over, my blood went cold. Scrawled in neat pen across the back were 4 words. "Peanut deserves better." My throat tightened. That name again. My daughter's secret nickname. One only a handful of people knew. Arthur wasted no time. He dragged open a locked drawer in his study and slid a document across the desk. A will addendum. The words were simple, brutal, and life-shattering. Any living issue of my daughter Emily inherits majority control of the Black Trust, $68,000. The number was obscene, incomprehensible. I stared at the paper until the ink blurred. $68 million. A fortune that could rewrite destinies, or destroy them. My daughter wasn't just a child anymore. She was a target. through. The window, I spotted the HOA president, the same polished woman who waved too eagerly yesterday. Her sharp bob glistened in the sun, pearls glinting at her throat. She was on her phone now, her voice hushed but her eyes locked on the house. She smiled as if she were welcoming us, but her gaze was too focused, too hungry. Arthur leaned toward me, his voice dropping into a scalpel's whisper. I didn't find you by accident, Mia. I had investigators track every move you made. I paid your landlord to call me the second your situation turned deadly. The words sliced through me. My stomach flipped. You set me up? I baited a trap, Arthur admitted, his eyes cold steel. And you walked into it. It was the only way to force what's hiding in this neighborhood to move. Before I could answer, the heavy slam of a car door echoed outside. Tires crunched on the gravel drive. Headlights flooded the front of the house in blinding beams. My chest squeezed tight. Then came the pounding, urgent, merciless fists hammering on the door. A courier shoved a thick envelope against the glass, the seal visible even in the harsh glare. Arthur snatched it, tearing it open with hands that trembled just once before steadying again. Inside was a petition. Bold letters screamed across the page. Emergency guardianship petition, Lily Reynolds. My knees nearly gave way as I read the judge's signature, Kellerman. The footnote below froze me entirely. Requested by Gavin O'Connell. The pounding on the door grew louder, sharper, like the sound of justice knocking or predators circling. Red and blue lights began to strobe against the walls, painting Arthur's mansion in a sickening carnival glow. The police had arrived. And they weren't here for Arthur, they were here for Lily. The moment the police burst through the door, everything inside me froze. Their flashlights sliced through the darkened foyer, catching Lily's terrified face in sharp beams. The metallic snap of handcuffs echoed, and before I could even protest, cold steel bit into my wrists. My breath went thin, shallow, as panic strangled my chest. Lily screamed, reaching for me, her small arms flailing. "Mommy!" she cried, and the sound ripped me in half. Then Arthur moved. With surprising speed for a man his age, he stepped between us and the officers, his voice rising not in anger but in practiced authority, the voice of someone who had done this before. "Pending appeal," he snapped, thrusting a thick sheaf of papers into the nearest officer's hands. Signed, sealed, and filed. His tone brooked no argument, like he had rehearsed this exact confrontation in his head for years. The officers hesitated, their flashlights trembling against the paper. One frowned, lips moving as he skimmed the lines. Something in Arthur's confidence made them step back, though suspicion clung to their faces like sweat. My heart slammed against my ribs. This wasn't rescue, it was strategy, and then Arthur yanked me forward, hand still gripping the legal papers like a sword, and hissed under his breath, "Run." What followed was not the graceful chase of action movies. It was real ugly, desperate running. My lungs burned, my shoes slipped against wet grass, and Lily's cries cut through the night as Arthur pulled us through a hedge so thick it clawed at our skin. On the other side, hidden in shadows, a garden shed waited. He shoved the door open, and to my shock, the floor wasn't wood at all. It was steel. "A trapdoor." "Down," Arthur ordered. We climbed into darkness, the shed ceiling shut above us. My knees hit cold cement. The stairwell spiraled down into bunker lighting, buzzing fluorescent bulbs that hummed like flies. The air was colder here, sharp and humming with the kind of silence that felt engineered. Rows of shelves stretched before us, stacked with binders. Each was labeled in neat block letters: St. Mercy, Neonatal, CPS Audit, Kellerman Golf Partners. The names made my stomach lurch. I had seen them before, on court letters, in eviction notices, in whispered conversations at shelters. Arthur's hands shook as he pulled down a thick binder. His face, usually calm and composed, was pale and ragged, grief seeping through cracks in his mask. "Emily was 8 months pregnant when she disappeared," he said, his voice unsteady. "She came to me once, said Gavin was controlling, violent, and worse, connected. She was afraid he would use the baby as leverage." He flipped through the pages, photos, and documents spilling into the air like confessions. Nurses' logs. Crib cards. Polaroids of tiny wrists bound with plastic bracelets. He stopped at a section marked NICU, Hurricane Night. The page showed a power outage, backup generators failing, chaos in the neonatal ward. And then I saw it. 2 infants, swaddled in the same blanket. Their bracelets crossed. Their identities swapped. My breath shattered. "You think Lily?" Arthur's eyes cut into mine. "I don't think," he said, voice raw. "I know, the hospital's records were doctored. Donors were paid off. Hush money flowed through Kellerman's channels. And the HOA president?" He sneered. "Her husband owns the maintenance company that scrubs their digital logs clean." The world tilted beneath me. My knees buckled as the truth pressed down with unbearable weight. My daughter wasn't just a survivor. She wasn't just mine. She was the missing child, and then another memory slammed into me like a truck. Last year at the shelter there was a volunteer. A polished man who smiled too wide, who brought extra cereal boxes, who bent low to talk to Lily. He had called her Peanut when he thought I wasn't listening. I hadn't thought much of it then. But now I saw the face clearly in my mind. Gavin O'Connell, he had known her. He had already known her. A ping broke the silence. Arthur spun to his laptop, where code and windows filled the screen. He had ordered a rush DNA test, a quiet one, using a juice straw Lily had discarded earlier. I hadn't even noticed him collecting it. Now the results flickered onto the monitor. Match probability, 99.98%. Maternal line, Black family, Emily Black. The floor seemed to collapse beneath me. I clutched the desk for balance, the numbers glowing in front of me like a sentence I couldn't escape. Lily wasn't just the girl I had fought to keep alive through shelters and fires. She was Arthur's missing granddaughter. Arthur stared at the screen, his hands trembling, his face pale with equal parts devastation and relief. He looked up at me, eyes wet, voice breaking for the first time. "I'm sorry I had to drag you into this, Mia, but she was never lost. She was stolen, and I could never stop searching." Before I could answer, before I could even breathe, the monitors around us flickered. Static crackled. A door slammed upstairs, echoing like a gunshot through the bunker's speakers. I turned to the surveillance feed just as the cameras sharpened into focus. There, standing in Arthur's library, was Gavin. He looked directly into the camera, his shark smile curling as if he knew exactly where we were. He lifted something into view. A baby bracelet, plastic and worn from time. The engraving on it was clear even in the flickering light. Emily. And then he waved. The mansion glowed like a cathedral built for greed. Chandeliers spilled light over marble floors polished to a mirror's shine, every corner dripping with champagne, sequins, and suburban excess. Outside, campaign yard signs lined the hedges like soldiers, smiling judges, school board candidates, and local politicians, all stamped with the HOA president's stamp of approval. The gala was framed as a charity event, but it pulsed like a bribe, the kind of gathering where reputations were bought, traded, and buried. Arthur squeezed my hand tightly as we entered, his grip firm but trembling beneath the surface. He was dressed in a suit as sharp as a blade, every inch the old money patriarch. I wore a borrowed gown that felt heavy with other people's expectations. Beneath the silk, I could feel the wire taped against my ribcage, every breath amplifying my heartbeat into the hidden microphone. Arthur's voice brushed against my ear. "Neutral ground. Everyone's watching. He won't dare try anything here." But even he didn't sound convinced. The HOA president glided through the crowd like a queen in pearls, her bobbed hair gleaming under the chandeliers, cheeks stretched into a smile that never faltered. She kissed every hand, whispered into every ear, her presence constant, controlled, suffocating. I caught her glancing at Arthur and me more than once, her eyes narrowing just slightly, like a predator gauging when to strike. I scanned the crowd, searching for him, and there he was, Gavin O'Connell. He spotted me across the ballroom and raised his glass with a smile that belonged in nightmares. His shark gray suit shimmered under the lights as if he had dressed in arrogance itself. He walked toward me with the deliberate confidence of a man who owned the room, even if the deed didn't bear his name. "Peanut grew up," he said smoothly when he was close enough for me to smell the faint bite of cologne mixed with whiskey. His words dripped like venom into my ear. "Shame about your building, truly. But look at you, upgraded. Found yourself a family with a vault." His grin widened, teeth white, soulless. I clenched the edge of a linen-draped table to stop my hands from shaking. Rage bubbled hot in my chest, but I swallowed it down. For Lily, I had to. Gavin leaned closer, his voice a whisper only for me. You should sign the guardianship, Mia. Black money has a way of making people vanish. Ask Emily if you don't believe me. The name hit me like a punch to the ribs. Emily, Arthur's daughter, his lost child. My mind spun before I even had a chance to respond. Arthur stepped between us, eyes flashing, voice cutting the air like a scalpel. You swapped those babies when the power failed at St. Mercy, he accused, his tone carrying through the microphones we'd planted. You tracked her through shelters. You set fires when judges stalled. All of it, every death, every missing record, just to keep the Black Trust under your leash. For a heartbeat, the room went quiet, ears straining to catch the accusation. Then Gavin laughed. It wasn't nervous or defensive. It was cold, practiced, the laugh of a man who'd never lost in court. You think I started this? He hissed, his words sharp enough to slice bone. He leaned closer to Arthur now, his voice dripping with poison. Ask your sainted philanthropist how the first swap happened. Ask him who paid St. Mercy's $90,000 anonymous donation the week Emily disappeared. The air shifted. My stomach lurched. The chandeliers seemed to tilt above me, the whole world spinning in time with Gavin's smug smile. Arthur's face drained of color. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. We stumbled away, through a side hallway lined with framed photos of ribbon cuttings and golf tournaments, smiling faces of men who now felt like ghosts watching us unravel. The noise of the gala blurred behind us, voices muffled by blood pounding in my ears. In the kitchen, the silence was deafening. No clinking of glasses, no chatter of waitstaff. Just the low hum of refrigeration and something far darker. A steel cabinet waited in the corner, padlocked but sturdy. Arthur's hands shook as he produced a master key from his pocket. The lock clicked open. My stomach twisted. Inside, row after row of accelerant cans gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Gasoline, enough to burn down blocks. Hanging from a hook was a twisted necklace of NICU baby bracelets, their faded plastic catching the light like tiny ghosts. And on the bottom shelf sat a leather ledger, embossed and cruelly neat. Arthur flipped it open. In black ink, the words leapt at us. HOA cleanup, retainer received, names, payments, a ledger of destruction disguised as paperwork. Footsteps echoed behind us. I spun, and my heart stopped. Gavin was crouched in front of Lily. She had slipped inside quietly, curious, far too trusting for the poison that crouched before her. He knelt to her height, his smile gentle and practiced, his voice soft enough to make my blood boil. Hi, Peanut, he murmured. Lily froze, her coloring book slipping from her hands to the floor. She blinked up at him with wide, innocent eyes, fear and confusion mingling. Her lips trembled as she whispered, Have we met? Before I could rush forward, before Arthur could stop him, the ballroom plunged into darkness. Chandeliers flickered, then died, plunging the mansion into shadow. Gasps echoed from the crowd beyond the doors. A projector crackled to life against the far wall. Grainy night vision footage filled the room, the sound of static rattling through hidden speakers. Two men in scrubs appeared on the screen, faces half-shadowed but clear enough to recognize. One was Gavin. The other, my blood turned to ice. The other was Arthur. The room went silent, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Every head turned toward the screen, eyes glued to the grainy night vision footage. On the wall, Arthur appeared in scrubs, his face younger but unmistakable, his hands shaking as he pressed an envelope into a nurse's palm. His lips formed 6 words that cut the air in half. Hide her. He will hurt her. The effect was instant. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Gasps ricocheted across the marble floors. Someone screamed. Dozens of phones shot up to record. The carefully constructed illusion of civility shattered in seconds, replaced by outrage and panic. A councilman swore under his breath. A judge dropped her wine glass, the red liquid spreading like blood across the floor. In the chaos, I turned to Arthur. His face was pale, his body trembling. I did it, he rasped, his voice thin, breaking under the weight of the truth. I begged St. Mercy to keep my granddaughter off the books. Emily was terrified of Gavin, and his chest hitched. I was a coward. I thought money could make monsters obey. His confession landed like a hammer blow. The air thickened, impossible to breathe. From across the room, Gavin began to clap slowly. The smirk on his face was pure poison. And then I found out, he said, his words curling like smoke around us. You gave me the perfect leverage, Arthur. You made the first illegal move. I just professionalized it. His laugh spread through the room like a disease. Before anyone could react, Arthur ripped open his shirt. Gasps rippled again as the crowd saw what lay beneath. A transmitter, wires taped against his chest, glowing red. His voice thundered now, amplified by the microphone. Every second of this has been live-streamed, he declared. To every HOA page, every Facebook mom group, every parent who's lost a child in Ridge Lane. The HOA president paled. Judges shifted uncomfortably, faces twisting away from the cameras like vampires hiding from sunlight. Panic spread like wildfire through the wealthy crowd that had once felt untouchable. The doors burst open. This time it wasn't local police. It was state investigators in dark jackets, their badges glinting under the failing chandeliers. They pushed through the screaming crowd, eyes sharp, hands ready. The projector continued to roll, frame after damning frame, forged invoices, burner accounts, falsified CPS reports. A chain of payments connecting Kellerman Golf Partners to Ridge Lane HOA maintenance. Every thread of corruption tied together before our eyes. The rot that had eaten this neighborhood alive was now laid bare for everyone to see. But Gavin wasn't done. His composure cracked, rage spilling through the cracks. He lunged forward, his hand outstretched, not for Arthur, not for the investigators, but for Lily. My body reacted before my mind could. I shoved myself between them, my arms spread wide. Arthur surged forward too, his old frame still fueled by desperate love. But it was the bodyguard, silent, towering, who reached Gavin first. With the force of a train, he drove Gavin into a banquet table. Glass exploded, microphones shrieked with feedback, and Gavin howled as investigators snapped handcuffs around his wrists. Cameras flashed like lightning. The crowd roared in shock. Lily clung to me, trembling as Gavin was dragged past us, spitting curses, his perfect mask fractured at last. For a moment, I thought it was over. But the worst hadn't come yet. Arthur turned to me, his eyes heavy, full of a sorrow I couldn't place. His voice dropped, meant only for me. The DNA match wasn't only to Emily, he whispered. It flagged a closer tie first. He swallowed, his throat working hard. To your mother. Anna Reynolds. We were 19, she left. She never told me. My mouth went numb. My heart stopped. The world tilted. Not Emily's child, not only. I was Arthur's daughter. Lily wasn't just his granddaughter. She was his great-granddaughter. The revelation ripped through me like a blade. Every unanswered question of my childhood, every silence from my mother, every absence where a father should have been, suddenly it all made sense. The puzzle pieces clicked together in one brutal instant. Arthur's eyes glistened with tears as he pressed a folded document into my shaking hands. I wanted to fix this while breathing, he said, his voice ragged. So you'd never wonder if love came with strings. I unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. It was a revised trust, effective immediately. My name, Mia Reynolds, was written in bold. I now controlled the Black Trust, not as an heir, but as a weapon. Funds earmarked for class action lawsuits against St. Mercy Hospital, the HOA conspirators, and every official who had fed this monster machine. At the bottom, underlined twice, was a clause that stole the breath from my lungs. To the mother who refused to sell her child. Arthur smiled at Lily then, soft and proud like a man who had finally touched sunlight after decades underground. And then his knees buckled. We caught him as he collapsed onto the marble. Sirens wailed outside, closer now, blending with the shouts and chaos inside. Arthur's hand found mine, his grip weak but steady. His final words came as a whisper. End it for all of them. Make our name mean something good. And then his pulse stilled. His hand fell limp. The ballroom became a graveyard. Judges stood frozen. The HOA president mumbled her rights as investigators cuffed her, her voice shaking like a prayer she couldn't remember. Gavin screamed obscenities as he was dragged away, but his power was gone. Dawn broke outside, sunlight spilling over Ridge Lane, painting the perfect cul-de-sac in soft gold. But beneath the surface, rot still festered. I stood clutching the trust papers in one hand and Lily's tiny, trembling fingers in the other, both shaking with the weight of what came next. A week later, a box arrived on my porch. No return address. Plain cardboard. I carried it inside, heart pounding, and opened it with trembling hands. Inside lay dozens of NICU baby bracelets, each etched with names. Beneath them, a thumb drive. And taped to the top, a single post-it note scrawled in shaky handwriting. We weren't the only neighborhood. My breath caught. I looked at Lily. She looked back at me, her eyes no longer innocent but stormy, fierce. We went inside. We locked the door. I slid the thumb drive into my laptop. We pressed play. And somewhere in countless quiet American neighborhoods that looked perfect on the outside, the lights began to flicker.